Imagine achieving everything, yet feeling nothing. Welcome to the world of a perfectionist. In this realm, an unending pursuit of excellence reigns supreme, but satisfaction? It's a rare gem. Here, every success is dwarfed by the looming shadow of the next big thing, and the joy of achievement is fleeting at best. This is the paradox of perfectionism. It's a world where enough is never truly enough. But why does this pursuit of perfection often lead to depression? Let's delve into it. Perfectionism and depression, two seemingly unrelated concepts yet intricately linked. Perfectionism, the relentless pursuit of flawlessness, can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can drive us towards excellence. On the other, it can plunge us into the depths of despair. At the heart of perfectionism lies an insatiable desire for approval and fear of failure. High self-standards become a relentless taskmaster, always demanding more. The perfectionist's world becomes a constant race against oneself, a never-ending quest for the unattainable. Now, let's shift our gaze to depression. Imagine a dense, dark cloud that hovers, blurring the sun, casting long shadows. It's a constant heavy companion, sapping energy, joy, and hope. So, how do these two intersect? It's simple yet complex. The perfectionist's fear of failure and constant self-criticism can create an environment ripe for depression. When they fail to meet their own high standards, they may view themselves as failures. Their self-esteem takes a hit, and they begin to lose hope. This is not to say that every perfectionist is doomed to depression, but it's essential to understand that the constant striving for perfection can pave the way for mental health issues. Think about it like this. Imagine you're a potter at the wheel, tirelessly crafting a perfect pot. But there's a catch. The more you strive for perfection, the more the pot seems to crumble under your touch. The pot in this case represents your mental health. The key takeaway is that it's okay to strive for excellence, but it's important to remember that being human means being imperfect. We all stumble, we all fall, and that's okay. Failure isn't a catastrophe, it's a stepping stone. From a psychologist's perspective, perfectionism is a double-edged sword. It can drive us to strive for excellence, pushing us to reach new heights and achieve personal growth. But on the flip side, it can also be a heavy burden, a relentless taskmaster that never lets us rest. Perfectionism is like a persistent whisper in the ear, a voice that constantly says, "You can do better, you must do better." It's an internal standard that's often set unrealistically high, and meeting it becomes a never-ending quest. But here's the catch. This quest is not without consequences. When we constantly push ourselves to achieve perfection, we're setting ourselves up for stress. Our minds are like engines, and just like an engine, when it's constantly running at high speed without pause, it risks overheating. This is what stress does to our minds. It's the mental equivalent of an engine running hot, and it's not sustainable in the long run. And where there's stress, anxiety is often not far behind. Anxiety is the worry or fear that we're not good enough, that we won't meet the high standards we've set for ourselves. It's the nagging doubt that keeps us awake at night, the sinking feeling in our stomachs when we think about all the things we have yet to achieve. But the story doesn't end there. When stress and anxiety persist, they can lead to depression. Depression is that deep sense of sadness and hopelessness, a feeling that no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. It's the ultimate price we pay for chasing an unattainable ideal of perfection. The psychological perspective on perfectionism is clear. It's a mental and emotional tightrope that we walk, a balance between striving for excellence and maintaining our mental health. It's about understanding that our worth is not defined by our achievements alone, and that it's okay to be less than perfect. Remember, our minds are powerful, but they need balance. Even the Bible says, "For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment." Now, isn't that something? The good book itself encourages us to exercise humility and acceptance. This is a clear indication that perfectionism, as we understand it today, is not a new phenomenon. It has been around since the dawn of time, and ancient wisdom has long warned us about its perils. In the eyes of the Bible, we are all perfect in our imperfections. It's our flaws and our struggles that shape us, that make us human. The Bible teaches us to accept ourselves, warts and all, and to understand that we are not defined by our achievements or our failures. Consider the story of Moses, a man who stuttered and doubted his abilities, yet he led his people to freedom. Or think about David, a shepherd boy who became a king. Their stories are not about perfection, but about growth, about overcoming obstacles, and about the transformative power of faith and resilience. So, the next time you find yourself striving for unattainable perfection, remember these biblical teachings. Remember that you are enough just as you are. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You only need to be you, and to be the best version of you that you can be. Perfection isn't the goal, growth is. For me, and for most of my life, I have been a perfectionist. I grew up in the heart of the South, where sweet tea is a way of life and where every pie crust had to be just right. I was the girl who ironed her jeans, the one who color-coded her notes. I was the one who would lose sleep over a single typo in an email. I was the perfectionist who equated flawlessness with worthiness. And somewhere along the way, the pursuit of perfection became my own personal prison. The pressure was immense. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, with the fear of making a mistake constantly hanging over me. Depression crept in like a thief, robbing me of my joy and enthusiasm. I remember the nights I spent crying, feeling so lonely, so inadequate. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of my own unrealistic expectations. But one day, I had a revelation. It became aware to me that I was more than my mistakes, and more importantly, more than my achievements. I realized that it was okay to be imperfect, that it was okay to be human. I started to see the beauty in my flaws, the strength in my vulnerabilities. I learned to laugh at myself, to find joy in my imperfections. It wasn't an overnight change, for sure, but a journey filled with self-discovery, acceptance, and a whole lot of grace. I started seeing a therapist, began practicing mindfulness, and started surrounding myself with positivity, and I realized something profound. I learned that my value doesn't lie in my perfection, but in my humanity. I learned that it's not about achieving flawlessness, but about embracing our imperfections and learning from our mistakes. I learned that it's okay to stumble, to fall, to rise again. My journey still teaches me that perfectionism is not a badge of honor, but a mask for fear. And that removing that mask, embracing our imperfections, is where true freedom lies. So here's my message to you and to myself. It's not about being perfect, it's about being human. Overcoming perfectionism isn't about lowering standards, it's about altering perspectives. Now let's delve into some strategies to help us shift our outlook and find peace amidst our pursuit of excellence. First, we must learn the art of self-compassion. It involves treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we'd extend to a dear friend. Self-compassion means acknowledging that we are human, and like all humans, we are bound to make mistakes. It means giving ourselves the grace to learn and grow from these mistakes, rather than letting them define our worth. Next, acceptance. This doesn't mean resigning ourselves to mediocrity, but rather accepting our imperfections. It's about understanding that our worth is not contingent on being perfect. It's about recognizing that even our flaws and shortcomings make us uniquely us. Let's take a tiny moment and appreciate the beauty of our own individuality. Breathe in. Isn't that refreshing? Mindfulness is another powerful tool in overcoming perfectionism. It's about being present in the moment, accepting it as it is, without judgment or the need to change anything. It's about observing our thoughts and feelings, especially those nagging ones that scream "not good enough," and then choosing not to engage with them. Imagine those thoughts as uninvited party guests. You acknowledge their presence, offer them a polite nod, but you don't let them ruin your party. You're the host after all, and you decide who gets to stay. A great way to practice mindfulness is through meditation. Even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference. It's like hitting the refresh button on your mind, giving you a fresh perspective and a renewed sense of peace. Remember, overcoming perfectionism is a journey, not a destination. It's a process that requires patience and persistence. It's about learning to appreciate the journey with all its twists and turns rather than obsessing over the destination. So, let's embrace our imperfections, let's celebrate our unique journey, and let's begin to alter our perspectives, because as they say, change begins with a single step. For staying till the end, here's a bonus. Ever heard of the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi? It teaches us to find beauty in the imperfect, incomplete, and transient. It's about accepting and appreciating things as they are, imperfections and all. Now, that's a concept worth exploring. You see, in our pursuit of perfection, we often overlook the fact that it's our imperfections that make us human, unique. They're the character traits that set us apart, the quirks that make us endearing and relatable. Imagine a world of perfect beings, all flawless and identical. Sounds pretty dull, doesn't it? It certainly does to me. But when we infuse that world with a generous sprinkle of imperfections, it suddenly becomes vibrant, diverse, and interesting. That's the power of imperfection. Embracing imperfection doesn't mean settling for mediocrity. It means acknowledging that while we strive for better, we're already enough as we are. It's about finding balance, being kind to ourselves, and understanding that growth and happiness often spring from the most unexpected nooks and crannies of our imperfect lives. Let's take a leaf out of Thomas Edison's book. He didn't invent the light bulb overnight. It took him thousands of failed attempts, countless moments of frustration. But he saw each failure not as a flaw, but as a stepping stone to success. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's progress." And that's the spirit of embracing imperfection. In our pursuit of perfection, we learn to love our imperfect selves, celebrate our unique quirks, and value our personal journeys. For it's these very imperfections that make our lives beautifully unique, that make our stories worth telling. So the next time you stumble, remember, it's okay to be imperfect. As Leonard Cohen put it, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Imperfections aren't flaws, they're the marks of authenticity. In the pursuit of perfection, don't lose yourself. It's essential to love and accept who you are, rather than chase an elusive ideal of perfection. Recognize that it's our flaws that make us uniquely beautiful. So let's embrace our perfectly imperfect selves, because that's where our true strength lies. If you've resonated with this, do hit that like button, subscribe for more insights, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Remember, you're perfectly imperfect, and that's your strength. Until next time, keep growing.